This is the Tudor Pelagos FXD Chronograph. This watch is made for Tudor's cycling team, and I didn't really understand why they decided on the Pelagos lineup for the cycling team since, it's not a water sport. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. And I'll get to that later on in the video. First, let me thank my friends over at Martin Binder for letting me borrow this watch for a week. They are authorized dealers for Tudor, Omega, Hamilton, and many other brands. So if you are interested in this watch, I'm going to go ahead and leave a link down in the description box below. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe buttons as well. It really does help the channel. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the specs. We have a diameter of 42.6 millimeters, a lug-to-lug of 51.4 millimeters, a case thickness of 13.3 millimeters. With the strap, it's going to be around 14.4 millimeters, a lug width of 22 millimeters, and it weighs in at 70 grams. The crystal is a slightly domed sapphire with anti-reflective coating. It has a screw-down titanium crown, which gives the watch 100 meters of water resistance. Powering this watch is the MT5813, which is based off the Breitling B01 movement. It is COSC certified. It has 70 hours of power reserve, 41 joules, and it beats at 4 hertz. And the MSRP of this watch is just under $5,500. Taking a closer look, we have a matte black dial with stark white square indices. Above the hand stack, we have the Tudor shield, the word Tudor, and Geneve. Below the hand stack, we have chronometer and officially certified. And just below the color match date wheel, we have Swiss made. Now, what I do like is that sharp contrast between that matte black dial and those crisp white indices. If you're going to be cycling at upwards to 100 kilometers an hour, something that is very crisp, very legible, makes sense. At the 9 o'clock, we have the sub-register for the running seconds hand, and at the 3 o'clock is the elapsed minutes, going up to 45 minutes. The tachymeter scale is in the chapter ring that goes around the outside of the dial, and the units of measure are broken down for cycling and not necessarily for motorsports, so that's why you have 3 different levels on that tachymeter scale. And to go along with the Pelagos indices, we have the classic snowflake handset along with an arrow-tipped seconds hand. Now, to me, this makes sense. We have bold indices, the classic snowflake handset, the tiered tachymeter scale, and the 45-minute elapsed counter. It all makes sense to me for bike racing. Covering the dial, we have a slightly domed sapphire crystal with a little bit of AR coating underneath the crystal. Around the dial, we have a fixed bezel with a black aluminum insert. The case and bezel themselves are made out of a carbon composite material that have a matte finish to them. But the signed screw-down crown and the pushers are made out of a blackened titanium, which once again makes sense because this is a racing watch, so you want it to be lightweight. And since you're going to be interacting with the crown and pushers, you want them to be made of something more durable, so titanium in this instance, once again, makes sense. The black single pass-through strap that comes with the Tudor feels great to the touch, and it does seem to be very durable. It also has titanium hardware, including the buckle and the keepers. And in that same Tudor fashion, we have a closed case back. This is made out of that same blackened titanium. So all in all, this watch makes sense to me. It's lightweight, it is highly legible, and it is made off the Pelagos FXD line. So if you are riding your bike and you do happen to bump into somebody, you don't have to worry about the spring bar failing because there is no spring bar. That watch is going to stay secure on your wrist. And 100 meters of water resistance makes sense for this watch. While you're not going to assume that you're going to be swimming during a cycling event, you are going to be sweating on this consistently. It may rain from time to time during the event. So while I was confused on why it was built on the Pelagos line to begin with, after thinking about it for a little bit, it's starting to make sense in my old man brain. So now that we took a look at all of the specs, let's go ahead and go through the pros and cons of this watch before I give you guys my final thoughts. And we'll start off with the cons, with the first con being the strap that's included. And yes, it does have a titanium buckle and it has titanium keepers. Overall, it just feels a little bit flimsy. I think it has to do with the strap being only 1 millimeter thin, but when you put the strap through the pin buckle and through the keepers, it almost feels like it's a little too thin. I wish they would have included the Velcro lineup for this strap. And yes, while it only takes 5 seconds to put on the watch, the Velcro kind of makes more sense in a sports setting. If you wanted to remove it real quick, boom, boom, it's very easy with the Velcro. With the pin buckle, it may be a little bit finicky to fish it through, to put it on nice. So that's one little gripe I had. The only other thing I can see with this watch is that the AR coating is still a little bit lackluster coming from Tudor. I wish they would have included a little bit more underside AR coating or maybe AR coating on the top. I know it's a little divisive whether or not you want AR coating both on the top and on the bottom, but I think for this watch, it makes sense Since you are going to be riding outside, you want as much anti-reflective coating as possible. So the AR coating is a little bit lackluster here. And those two cons are really the only issues I had with this watch. I mean, even the snowflake handset interfering with the subdials doesn't really bother me all that much, because in the terms of bike racing, you don't really care about your elapsed minute. All you care about is the speed that you're going right now. That 3-tier scale is really the only thing that you should be looking at, and you really don't need to mind about the elapsed minutes. But that's enough of the cons. Let's move on over to the pros, with the first pro being the overall design of this watch. The case is made out of a carbon composite. The pushers and crown are made out of a blackened titanium. It has a single pass-through strap. It has those fixed spring bars. It makes sense for being a cycling watch with 100 meters of water resistance and with it being a chronograph. The whole thing makes sense to me now, and they did a bang-up job with the design. The next pro is going to be the lume on this watch, and since those indices are made out of solid blocks of luminescence, this thing lights up like a flashlight. I love the amount of lume on the indices, on the hands. You're definitely going to be able to tell the time at night, and this has better lume than a lot of divers out there, even better than all of the divers I have in my collection, which is crazy since this is a chronograph, although, you know, it is based off of a diver design, so that is definitely a big pro in my book. My next pro is going to be how well this watch wore on my wrist, and while it does have a whopping 51 millimeters lug to lug, I think it looks pretty good on my wrist. Maybe it has something to do with that single pass-through strap or possibly the black design, but overall I think this watch looks great on my wrist. I like the presence of it, and while it does sit at 14 millimeters give or take with the strap, it doesn't feel as chunky as the spec sheet suggests. My next pro is going to be a combination of the fixed bezel and that tiered tachymeter scale. Now, they could have just put a simple motorsports tachymeter scale on there, but instead they gave you units that are actually going to be seen in cycling. So to me, that makes sense. And then to go along with that, you have that fixed bezel that acts as your 60-second counter. So you have an elapsed 45-minute counter at the 3 o'clock. You're tracking 60 seconds along the outside of the bezel and the tachymeter scale along the inside. I think the functionality is all here for a racing chronograph. Overall, I really like this watch, from the materials used to the functionality of the piece to how well it fits on my wrist. I mean, between this watch, the Tissot Carbon, Speedmaster Apollo 8, maybe I'm just biased when it comes to black watches. Maybe I should design a black watch. Just subscribe. You'll see what's coming later. But anyways, back to the Tudor. Overall, I think is a great design, and while it doesn't have a bracelet option, obviously, since it's an FXD, I think it could fit in a lot of different collections and a lot of different situations. But let me know what you think of the FXD chronograph down in the comment section below. And once again, thank you to my friends over at Martin Bender for letting me borrow this watch. I'll go ahead and leave a link to their store in the description. And if you haven't done so already, please hit the like and subscribe buttons as well. It really does help the channel. And for your next video, why don't you stick around and watch what? Watch the Omega Speedmaster Dark Side of the Moon. It's another black watch that is amazing. That one's made out of ceramic. Go ahead. Watch it right there. Right there. Go ahead. Go. Go now. Go now. Go.